right, so we're just going to go live here.
Sounds good.
So we're there. It's already live right now.
Awesome.
So we're going to the world on YouTube. I didn't do the Facebook thing.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie. This is actually good information for everybody, and maybe you. We switched about a month and a half ago away from Xfinity cable, right? So we kept the internet, and then we tried a different one. We tried the Sling TV.
Yeah.
And then we did the PSVU is the one that we're with.
Right.
And so this is so silly. Xfinity has a data limit, which is a terabyte, which under normal circumstances, nobody in the world would ever use a terabyte. But if you watch TV and everything you do is streamed, you're going to hit that terabyte, right? And so you can get the overages. Well, overages aren't bad. It's like $5 for, or $10 for every 5 gig you go over or something, right? So it's really, the overages are extremely fair. But I'm all panicked about going over. And they let you go over 2 or 3 times for free, and they don't charge you and all that kind of stuff. And then, like the 3rd or 4th month or something, they'll nail you for it. So I keep watching it, and I'm like, oh, man. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do the Facebook Live with this. I'll just upload the video later.
That makes sense.
You know? And it's one of those tricks, because I'm like, you can get unlimited data for an extra $50 a month. But then when you start doing the backwards math of one of the other services with the unlimited data plan with this, then it makes sense just to go back to the cable, right? Because you're talking pennies at that point.
Well, I don't know. I don't have to do that with my cable, but with my phone, because I have my 2 kids on my plan. I had to do unlimited. Thank God Verizon came out with the unlimited thing, because the overages every month were
death.
Crushing. At least now I know what my bill is going to be every month.
Exactly. Okay, so I'll make you do one thing. Get a lot closer to the mic,
no
and then the amplification comes like coned out this way.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that way people will be able to hear you and the whole, the whole thing, right? So, okay, I have ask little questions.
Sounds good.
So I don't, but my whole goal is to be like really seriously. With the whole thing is to get you to talk.
Okay.
And the whole portion of the show is it's Unlighten Me, right? So enlighten,
Gotcha.
right? Because I know a lot about a lot, but a little about a lot too.
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense. So I try to use this platform to just almost spread awareness, learn something, share something. Sometimes it gets funny, sometimes it gets sad, sometimes it's I don't have a fucking clue.
Right.
That's why, like, when we met, so everybody knows. I mean, we've only spoken once.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
And then everything else is social media.
Yeah.
Which even that's super limited. But so it's I don't want it. I want it to be raw. I want people to know what's going on. So sometimes the first little bit's a little choppy, but I want it to be conversational,
right?
Not, hey, what's your name? Hey, how old are you? Hey, fuck, I hate that. Drives me crazy,
no, I'm
man.
with you on
Yeah.
that.
So, you are a police officer?
Yes, I am.
Sugarland?
Well, I work for Meadows Place.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Just make real clear, I'm not speaking for Meadows Place. This is.
Well, no, but I mean, it's just information.
Right. That's where I work.
Yeah, you're not representing them.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. And I'm with several companies, and I am not representing them either at this point. It's just a free for all. How long have you been doing it?
Well, I've been a cop, like over 20 years.
Okay.
I was a cop in the military first, in the Air Force. Got out, went to school. I actually went to school. I was going to be a teacher. And my ex-wife wanted me to do that. It sounded cool. Summers off, Monday through Friday. After going to school for that for a couple of years, I realized that I was going to be miserable if I did that. And I really liked being a cop in the military. It was a lot of fun. So I went back to being a cop, and I've been doing it for 20 years. I still love it. Still get goosebumps when things happen. I still get excited when we're about to catch somebody. It's a great job. I love it.
So I'm gonna go straight into some of the nitty gritty, right? Because
people.
who knows how many people are jumping on because the damn metrics are never right. Like seriously, I'm like, oh, nobody watched today, and I wound up getting like 150 DMs about it. I'm like,
I don't even know.
No clue, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have all the racial stuff. We have all the
Yeah.
Good cop, bad cop, this cop. Everybody's killing everybody, all that kind of shit, right? Is there? And again, you're not speaking for Meadows Place,
right?
But is there anything within the officer or cop community that you guys are doing? I'm not going to say address this, but this is my opinion, and then we'll go from there. I think that may be an easier way to do it. I'm going to say it's 99.9% bullshit. Very few cops are going out with the idea, I'm going to target somebody. And then when they get into a situation, this is me now, I do have my PhD in genetics, and I study epigenetics and human nature and a lot of psychology and things of that nature. So I'm not just coming from hey, I kind of think this.
Right.
we all have prejudices. It's part of human nature. It's why we're alive, right? That's why we've made it as long as we have as far as a species. And that's just the reality of it. So we do that. I think sometimes in heightened situations where every little decision is a matter of life and death for someone, them, you, that person, this person, whomever, we make decisions that go back to the core of what those our genetic predispositions say.
Well, I'll tell you. First of all, I think that, and you're talking about really the last couple of years has been been heightened again, and I don't think it's the first time. We've had those issues maybe in the 70s and the 80s, and they kind of come up, the 90s again. I think it's a media hype driven issue, and I can only speak from my personal experience, and the conversations I have with other officers and my knowledge of other officers. They're out there. We're out there. All we're trying to do is serve our community, protect our community, find the bad guys and put them where they need to go, and help the people who need help.
Yeah.
And I don't see, when I see media accounts of officers are racist or officers or whatever whatever they decide to label us with, I don't see it. It's not my personal experience that I see any of that behavior.
Yeah.
I just don't see it, and it's pretty upsetting for us. 2 years ago, it got when Dallas, they had that situation where they lost 5 officers in one night.
Yeah.
From a guy who probably had some mental issues. I think a lot of these guys do, but he was the anti-police media hype.
Yeah.
The buzz around anti-police stuff. I think that kind of was at a crescendo at that point, and it fed into it and gave him fuel to go out and commit those acts. And we lost 5 really good people.
Yeah.
That just because they're wearing a uniform, and ironically, they're there to protect a Black Lives Matter march.
Yeah.
And close to here, it's up in Dallas. So when we felt that here, probably more than others, but I can tell you, officers nationwide, just from communicating with guys like social media.
Yeah.
Everybody felt
that. And and before we get anybody off the rock or whatever, are there officers that are racist? Sure. Are there some that are bigoted? Sure. Are there some that are bad? Sure. Are there some that are amazing and great? Sure. All of that, right? I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, I think more today than ever, our police community represents our entire demographic.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've spoken to some officers that are so liberal. I'm like, how the hell do you wear a badge? And that's just the reality of it. But I mean, I think we need all and all that kind of stuff. Because I mean, I know a lot of people are going to watch this and say, "Oh, well, that's bullshit," because I lost my brother to some bullshit incident.
Exactly.
And that's true. I don't want to diminish that, because anybody who has that tight of a personal experience is going to have an increased emotional response.
Well, so you have to look at the numbers. I don't know what our population is in this country, 340 million or something.
325, 350, something.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
And you have approximately 850,000 officers working the streets, more or less.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You break that down into 365 days a year, and these are contacts happening constantly. The numbers of actual instances where there are bad officers, and no doubt some
it happens. Yeah.
Commit some act are minuscule when you take it into the whole context of those numbers. And but what happens is one situation, and everybody has a camera now, so you see a bad situation happen on camera, and there have been a couple, and immediately every officer's labeled that way.
Yeah.
And not just this is a bad individual that probably shouldn't have been a police officer.
Exactly. And that's going to happen. We have to know that. And then there's the other side. There's a lot of videos I've seen to where it's you miss the first 6 minutes of the confrontation, and then so you get it once that person has gotten it together to start recording, or when they edited it because it doesn't go live, or if it goes live, it's multiple minutes into the incident, so to speak, and so you don't get the pure thing. And then
that's real common.
When you turn, I don't care who you are, if you turn a camera on to anybody in that type of a situation, you act. You get a little more inflammatory, you get a little more reactional, you get a little more emotional, you feel a little more protected, you get all of those things, right? And so that's just a word of caution. A lot of people watching, like when you see the videos, say like, wait, what's the surrounding circumstance?
Mm-hmm.
And this will piss a shitload of people off. Hands up, don't shoot. It never happened.
No, it was a myth.
It never happened. And we
they
had people,
still say it.
yeah, today. Well,
Still
not
say
today.
it.
A few days ago, marching, hands up, no shoot. I'm like, okay, good message, but it's not a quote. It never happened.
Well, it never happened. But
Right.
it was again. That's I think an example of media-driven hype.
Yeah.
They took that and they ran with it. They never really walked it back. They never came back and said, "Well, the investigation revealed this never happened. This guy never put his hands up and said, 'Don't shoot.'" That poor officer, I don't recall his name at this point, but he lost everything to that incident, and it looks like from what that investigation revealed, including the Department of Justice's own investigation, he was completely justified, and that young man went for his weapon, and he responded appropriately, but his life is his law enforcement career is completely done.
And that was just people that was under President Obama's
Department of Justice
system. So it wasn't new appointees. It wasn't anything that changed. It was his. Towards the end of his deal. So I mean, that was his people. So if there was something wrong,
they sent a representative to I believe it might have been Eric Holder went to. I don't want to be 100%, but I know they sent a representative to the individual's funeral.
Oh wow!
Yeah, on that one, and I remember that really.
You know what? I remember that. Yeah,
really
I do remember that now. I don't remember who.
We don't even know what happened yet. And you just.
Yeah.
It was very frustrating. That was a very frustrating time. I think for most police officers, when we really felt like most officers felt like you did not have the backing of the president of the country. He was very quick to point out if an officer did something wrong or to be accusatory towards an officer, it was tough. That was a tough time. It made me question why I was still in law enforcement for a little bit.
A lot of guys did. A lot of guys retired. Stepped out or changed careers. Maybe not in long enough to retire, but yeah. Okay, so in that vein, is there anything you have experienced in your life that could put you close to a situation to parallel you going through a dangerous stop or something where you were in danger on your job? Does that make sense?
Just in work,
any simulation, anything outside of being an officer?
Training for it?
Yeah, so. And the reason I ask is because so many people are like, oh well, I never would do this, or oh, I never would do that, or oh, if I had to fire, I'd fire once. It wouldn't have been 3 or 4 times. I wouldn't have unloaded on them. Is there anything that you know of that can put people there?
That like a regular person, or you talking a police officer?
No, regular person.
We have simulations. There's types of we have. I can't think of what it's called right now, but we use it's like a laser shooting system where you have you have a pistol and they'll throw a scenario in front of you and it records where you're hitting and how you respond to some situations that could happen that you deal with that could be deadly force situations or some type of use of force thing. And I think it was an example of that. I think what was it? Local guy went through one and was talking about how difficult it was and he didn't know what to do. The thing is that it's easy for somebody, I think, that has no training and is a good person and is looking at something from what they consider a common sense maybe perspective, but they don't have any training or basis for looking at what an officer does and being able to be critical of it. It's easy for them to look and go, I would never do that, or I would never shoot that many times, or I would. Well, and you would know better than most people that in a shooting incident, you're not stopped shooting until that threat is done, because it's a threat until they stop. And people don't understand that.
And that goes both with training and human nature. Once a threat is identified, you're not going to turn your back on it. You're not going to holster a weapon and then take away your ability to defend yourself because you think they might be contained. Or you
can't assume.
No. So once you get to that point of lethal force or of any of that, you've got to go.
Which by the way, officers do not want that to happen. I don't know a single officer that goes to work and goes, man, I hope this is the day I get in a gunfight. Nobody thinks that. Nobody. Everybody's like, man, I hope I go through this shift. I hope I do my job, maybe catch a bad guy, and then hopefully get to go home, close to when I'm supposed to, so I can go watch Netflix or whatever.
Go binge.
Go
binge watch and do some of that. And so that's just and I know these are some trigger things for a lot of people. Because they're like, oh well, cops this, and you get that all the time. So I'm just trying to kind of key in on a little bit of that before
It's
on the
been a
front end.
frustrating couple of years.
Yeah.
I've been called a lot of things on the street, and
Yeah.
it definitely was heightened. It's coming back down. It's
Okay.
normalizing, which I think, like we refer to as ebbs and flows in police work and how
Yeah.
we're reviewed, and I think it's starting to get better for us.
Okay.
Hopefully, it continues.
And I'll say this is there are more and more through social media, which is one of the great things of social media. There are more and more officers of all kinds, young, old, black, white, Asian. There's one I just went blank on his name that's out in Hawaii that does a boatload of videos. I'll have to show you his page when we're done. That's shows the reality of what's going on.
Right.
That people of all walks of life love them. They interact with them. There's all of these things. So you're getting to see more of that, and I think maybe that's diffusing it a little bit.
I don't want like all my contacts are negative. Most people will come up to me and say, "Hey, man, I appreciate what you do." Which always feels weird to me because I'm like, "Well, I'm getting paid to do this.
Yeah, it's my job,
I mean, I'm glad you appreciate that. I mean, nowadays that feels good to hear after some of the stuff we've dealt with. Majority of contacts are very positive, and like I do, we talk about jiu-jitsu, and that's a very, very mixed group of people that train in jiu-jitsu, and all my contacts with them are very positive. A lot of people don't realize I'm a cop until they get to know me. Oh, really? And but it's always something. It's always real.
Sorry,
it's always positive.
With so many, especially low level. I'm just so bad. Low level MMA guys and jiu-jitsu guys. They find out you're a cop. I'm instantly thinking they're like, oh fuck, what did I say? What did I say? They're going through the Rolodex of, oh, did I share this? Oh, did I say this?
They always, the jiu-jitsu community, so it is what it is. I say, hey, that's your personal life. We're here to train, and I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
I'm just look at you as another person.
No, I just laugh.
Yeah. Actually, I usually always think that they think, oh yes, this is my chance. I get to put it on a cop.
Oh,
so
you have the different. Yeah.
Like. It's like, all right, I'm going to have to be real careful now. They know I'm a police officer because this is their opportunity. They get free reign on me now. But no, but that doesn't. That never happens.
Funny.
It never happens.
Well, it's okay. So in that, what's your thought on all the cannabis and weed and everything?
Weed.
Personal opinion, not
personal opinion.
Yeah.
Well, this is something that I think you're seeing a lot of legalization through all the states. I don't know how many states we're up to, but it's definitely growing.
Yeah.
Including D.C., District of Columbia. Weird. But where they still keep it illegal, but for everybody else. But I think that this is something that we have to all prepare for as far as police officers go and the justice system. And you're kind of starting to see it happen. You're seeing Harris County. I think they recently came out with a thing this year or this last year where first offenses, they're allowing them to take a class. It's dismissed.
They're decriminalizing it, whatever that means.
Because the second offense, you're still getting hooked. I think it's an eventuality that it's going to happen. It's going to come through. Now, I think the question is going to be: is all 50 states legalize it first, and then the federal government gives in, or is it going to be a question of the federal government sees it coming and just to alleviate the pressure on the conflict between the states and the federal government, if they're just going to finally legislate and legalize it, so they don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah,
and I think there's a little issue happening right now with what's his name. With the Department of Justice, where they're starting to say, well, we're going to start enforcing more, where Obama's administration was very much like, we're just going to hands off, states do what they want to do with this right now.
Yeah, and they are, they did do the thing, the announcement that they had the go ahead to be able to start strictly enforcing the laws.
So if they're,
I don't know what that means. Like really,
it's a weird situation because you have states that have really established it. Like Colorado's had it for a while now. Washington's gotten it pretty established. California just legalized. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with that because I think I don't know. It's going to be interesting because these economy the sale and growth of marijuana in these states has become very much important part of it's starting to become a very important part of their economy, especially like in Colorado, and because they've had it the longest.
Yeah,
and we'll see. I think there's been some interesting studies on the effects to the community with legalization coming out of Colorado, where it's showing that, and I don't want to quote the study, but I believe it's shown that, and I could be wrong, but the DWI arrests are down.
Yeah.
Criminal acts are down. They're seeing a lot of positive to it, not just the financial. And there's been financial benefits too, obviously.
And I could be a little bit wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm watching it real close. And across the board in all legal states, excluding California because it's only been a month. Hadn't even been a month. So
they haven't figured it
we're
out
not
yet.
really talking about them yet.
Although
but,
technically,
Yeah,
they were
they've
kind of like giving it to everybody. Right?
yeah, that wasn't
You got a
really
headache?
regular. Yeah,
There you go.
here, here's your script.
Yeah.
Where'd you get the script from?
Yeah.
That guy in
Your
the
knee-
corner. I don't
Your
know. I
knee
gave him a
hurts?
5. Yeah,
Your knee hurts? There you go.
which is awesome. But yeah, so all serious crime is on a decline, the same as across the country. So that's unaffected by it. But like the misdemeanors and even traffic violations are down, and DWIs are down, and minor altercations as far as assault, as far as like at bars and all this, that's all down in all the states. That I'm like, that's smart, you know.
Now, does it correlate? I don't know. I haven't read the study.
If if it's on this kind of a decline, then you introduce weed and it drops really a lot more and then stabilizes. Well, then what else could it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think
that because we had an eclipse. I don't know. You know,
we'll see. Here's what I will say. You know, here in Texas, it's still legal.
Yeah.
So, guys, any usable amount will get you arrested. It's a Class B misdemeanor for any usable amount and up. So, I'll say, you know, if you're in the state of Texas, if you're using, you're taking a risk of being arrested, and that can have an adverse effect on your life. So, be smart about your decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I would say about that.
And me, I like the science on it. You know, I like the science as far as the therapeutic things.
Well, you know, it's funny. So my brother, and I don't bring. He's I don't know how much I've told you about him. He went through a pretty bad accident like 3 years ago.
Yeah, you told me that.
He got paralyzed, and so you know he's dealing with the rehab and stuff like that. And one of the best things that he says he takes is CBD oil.
Yeah,
he says the CBD oil relieves the pain and the soreness that he has to deal with from his situation better than anything else. And he swears by it. He buys the expensive stuff. Yeah, and it's true. But just while people are watching, because we're there, whole plant is very different than extract. Right. And whole plant is a lot more expensive than extract. So typically the price tag, I hate to say the price means it's better, but most of the time with CBD is most things, right? It's better. Yeah. Well, he I think he buys it straight out of Colorado. It's what it's like a. I'm not sure. I think it's a dropper. I'm not sure. Most are liquid drops. Yeah. And I know there's like a cream that's come out now, and
and I don't know how good the cream is, but it's out.
Well, I've used it, and it's because we sell it at my academy where we train. Our Brian Marvin, my professor, Brian. Yeah. He's sponsored by Monkey Tape, and they produce the CBD oil. Yeah. And tried it out, and it's pretty good. It feels like a Bengay, but kinda, to me. But minus all those extras. Yeah, and it doesn't smell as much. Yeah. But I feel like the soreness go down. I feel a little better. So, I mean, I think definitely the medical aspects of marijuana are very, very promising. Yeah. Well, I would like to see more studies and if to show, because I think there's been a lack of studies on it I guess because of government funding wouldn't do it. But the clinical studies are going through the roof now. Yeah. Because certain states are legal. Yeah. So now it doesn't exactly go this way with the FDA. But if you prove it's safe to test on humans, then you get a period of years to prove its efficacy. Right. And that's where they are now. Is that? That's good. If it's legal in the state, then it's consumed or it's considered safe for human consumption. So then now for clinical studies, you can go through the roof. Yeah. So I wonder, like one question I was talking to someone about, I wonder what the effect is on, say, like narco groups that try to bring in marijuana. I know marijuana is not the only thing they bring in. They bring in a lot of stuff. But I think from what I've read, like it's 20% of what they bring in. Yeah. And I wonder if the legalization that's happening, if it's having an adverse effect on them, as far as the marijuana side it goes. I don't know. I've never read it. I haven't read it. With California, I think it might. With all the other states, I would say no, because there's just so much of a market for. This sounds so bad. It's illegal as shit, but there's so much of a market for them across the rest of the country. I don't think it's affecting them. Yeah, I'd be shocked if it was. I guess they just float whatever they need it. Yeah. Now California, now I think that'll affect them. Yeah. I mean, the news 2 or 3 days ago, they said that they're projecting a safe projection is an additional $1 billion of state revenue just because of legalization a year. How's that working though? If the federal, if you can't put it, they still can't put it in banks, right? Money that they produce, it has revenues. I think the rule is it has to stay within the state. So they could, so it just can't be like FDIC insured or something. I don't even know if it's possible. I don't, like it gets real weird, like the financial side of it. States get their money somehow. Yeah. Well, it's all taxes. Yeah. I mean, that's all through the sales tax. And so the state can keep it within themselves. They just can't. They can't use it for aid across state lines, and they have to use it internal. I mean, there's weird rules with it, but they can't commingle the money. They have to keep it separate. Right. How do you prove that in government? Come on now.
So here's my bold prediction. The federal government is going to get a real visual taste of the amount of money that can be generated from tax revenue from selling weed. The federal ban goes away.
Yeah, I think the problem that I think the problem that I think they already know that money's there.
Yeah.
I don't. They're not dumb.
Yeah.
They can see it, but I think the issue is some of the individual. A lot of the politicians individually are receiving a lot of money from probably pharmaceutical and
Yeah.
alcohol industry and tobacco industry, because I think the marijuana industry would be a direct competitor to those three.
Yeah, but pretend like the tobacco industry is not ready for that. Does that
Well,
make sense?
No, this
You know,
is
like
true. No,
you
you're
know,
right
like
about
they're
that.
gonna.
I'm for sure they've seen the light, and they're probably getting ready to be, Marlboro
Yeah.
Greens or whatever they
Because
call it.
think of it like this. This is because I had a discussion with somebody on the phone the other day. I was like, take Marlboro or whatever, take any of them, and to produce cannabis, it's a faster crop, it's a cheaper crop. It has built-in, the way it grows is it's built-in insecticides, so there's
Right.
less you have to do to it. Then when you put it on the shelf, there's less liability to the companies, the cigarette companies, tobacco company, because they don't have to put all the crap in it they put in cigarettes.
Yeah.
And so then it's like,
Chemicals.
and you can sell it for more. So it produces faster, it's cheaper, and you can sell it for more.
What is so for people who smoke it,
Mhm.
is there any effects like with lung cancer the way there is with cigarettes? Now, I know they say that the chemicals in the cigarettes is probably the main
Right.
cause of those.
So you could do it this way. So going more scientific, but super basic. Anything that you consistently breathe that's on fire produces carbons,
Right.
right? And that can be, will be, but that can be a carcinogen.
Okay.
So that does increase your risk. They have not clinically been able to tie what we know as lung cancer from smoking cigarettes to lung cancer from smoking weed.
Right.
They haven't been able to tie it. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but again, clinical studies are low.
Right.
So it's
It's interesting. It's interesting to see how it turns out. I don't know. I
It'll be
agree.
fun.
I agree. Eventually, I think legalization is coming.
It's
It's a matter of time.
Yeah.
It'll be in our lifetime, I think, no doubt.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, alcohol is legal, and alcohol wreck. I see more horrible decisions and horrible things happen when people drink alcohol. So, last night, I'm working this extra job, and extra job, for those who don't know, a police officer. So you work your real job, and your 8 hour, your 9 to 5 or whatever hours you work. Well, we pick up side jobs. People pay us to do security for them as police officers. So I'm working at this particular place where I get to sit in my personal vehicle and just make sure, watch the line, watch whatever I'm watching to make sure everything goes okay. So I see this guy walking down the street, and he's coming from a not such good part of it. And he keeps walking, walks by. Well, all of a sudden he turns around and comes up to my truck. And I'm actually on the phone with somebody at the time. And I see him, and I'm like, well, if I ignore him, he'll go away. Like, you can't tell I'm a cop. I'm sitting in my truck till you reel up on me, and then you can see what I'm wearing. And he gets up there and he just bangs on my window. I'm like, what's this guy want? And I said, what's up, man? And he goes, can you give me a ride home? No, I can't give you a ride home. No, come on, man. I want to ride home. And so I told him 2 or 3 times no. And if I said, look, man, I'm a police officer. You're intoxicated. You're about to go to jail, man. You need to go. And well, he wasn't having it. He didn't care. He said, I just cold. I need to ride home. And so actually, coincidentally, my partner that I work with normally pulled up, and I was like, hey, man, help me out with this guy. And so he didn't get a ride home.
Yeah.
But it was alcohol. Like, I was really intoxicated, and I guarantee you tomorrow he's gonna be like, why did I do that?
Yeah. Just that's
alcohol.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I see a lot. And that's me, is that, I laugh a lot. I mean, I've never had alcohol in my life. I've never had any kind of drug in my life. Never any banned substance that's currently a banned substance. And I put that disclaimer because I did have ephedrine when it was legal back in the early 90s, I guess. Mid 90s it went banned or whatever.
When it start killing people or something.
They think it killed whatever, I mean, some people died, and one of the things that they had taken when they had died was ephedrine. So, but what we had 2 kids in Minnesota, this was 12 years ago, 10 years ago, that they tried to attribute taking creatine to because they had some sort of cardiac arrest during their summer two-a-days in high school. I'm like, creatine? Really? And like all the high schools like banned all supplements and this whole, I'm like, okay, really, whatever. So really, I mean, I've never had a banned substance and never been on a banned substance. So I mean, I'm like, Mr. Clean in that avenue, and been a heavy advocate for all natural and no drug and heavy against people who do drugs and the whole
Well,
shebang.
what do you think about? So you're anti-drug, but what do you think about like PEDs in non-contact sports, baseball, things of that nature? What do you think? Because we had the great '90s with the boom, with the home runs.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
pretty
and
much
that's
all
just
attributed to
fun, and it
steroids.
does great for the sport. But then it's kind of like, I was cool with it until this. I had heard, and I'm trying to remember that he was one of the bigger pitchers during that era for the Braves. It'll come to me.
Yeah, like John Smoltz.
No, Mike.
Like,
Gone. Anyway, I gotta leave it. Talking to him, he says, "You know what? It's great what those guys did, but think of how many pitchers' careers they ended."
yeah, but pitchers were on it too.
But that was kind of the whole thing. It's like, okay, well, the pitchers come around, but then okay, well, they do, so they do, so they do, so they do, so then everybody, and I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of like, my universal answer now today is it depends,
Right.
because it's what is the PED, who's monitoring it, how much they take in, how much
Well-
they this, and so I'm kind of like, this is sort of, I'll give you my stance, and then you please give me your
Okay.
story on it. I think this: if our hormonal ranges as a male are this, I think you should be able to take any PED of any level, of any kind, to get you to that of the top level. If you pass that top level, you're out.
Hmm.
Because naturally, if we're trying to say level playing field, because I hear that all the time, and now this is coming from somebody who's massively anti-drug, or anti-PED, anti all that. But if we're saying level playing field, define level playing field.
Right.
Okay, so if our range is 1 to 100, just for story purposes, and this guy made it to be a professional athlete, but he's at a 35, and then he's going against me, who's naturally at a 98, well, that's not a level playing field.
Right.
Mm.
I see
In
what you- I see your
theory,
point.
you know, so then, and the reason I say it that way is because then it forces proper observation of each athlete individually, and monitoring, and it helps manage their health and adverse effects and things of that way, as opposed to all the was it not is it called Belco? What was the one with
Balco.
Balco?
Balco.
It doesn't that. Oh, hey, we'll take that. Well, how much? That much.
Oh,
You know, you get away from that
see
type
what
of stuff.
happens.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it just becomes monitored, and that's kind of my deal now.
I'm not a big PED guy, and I think there's a lot of. I wouldn't say I'm not a PED guy because of how it affects an athlete necessarily. I just think that when you, maybe let me take that back. Let me walk that back. I don't like the way it can physically affect people in the sense of long-term health.
Yes.
And when you start putting numbers into it and money into it and people's financial careers and what they're going to do later and what they're going to take, and when they can't take it legally,
Yeah.
they can't do it under a true doctor. I'm sure they're doing it under some type of doctor's care, but you know how much, and they can't take it in a manner that's probably really safe for them. It's it's probably a bad thing, and it needs to be
Dangerous.
monitored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if all the athletes were monitored for safety and things of that nature, there's always going to be cheaters. So take that small percentage out that are going to blow it out of the water. Would you feel better about it?
If it was monitored properly,
Yeah.
I think I would be okay with they already, like so define PEDs, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, creatine's a PED. It's technically
Technically, it is.
right.
Yeah.
So now, but you start talking about stronger
Yeah.
drugs when you start getting them into like the different steroids, and that's where if it's not properly done, it can have really bad effects on someone's body.
But the key word's properly done.
Yeah.
So
I
guys,
think,
yeah.
It would be fun. I know that the like baseball purists, I'm definitely not one of those, but like a baseball purist would lose his mind because Babe Ruth was
Babe Ruth was on
drunk
Assload,
and
yeah.
eating hot dogs, walking up to the plate.
He was also on Assloads of ephedrine.
Yeah, well,
You know,
the
or
greenies and
amphetamines.
all
I'm
that
sorry, not
stuff,
amphetamine, but
which
amphetamines,
was,
yeah.
That was very common for a long.
Yeah.
It probably still is. I don't know, but
So it's kind of like
for sure.
define your,
Yeah, for sure. That's
you're a
good point.
purist, but I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so they can be amped up on every illegal amphetamine on the market
It's
now,
not-
and that's
it's not
cool, but
steroids.
yeah,
it's-
but
they can
but
hit that
don't-
ball longer if they.
Yeah, and then in today's world with all the science, with all the blood stuff and CRISPR and the genetic things and stem cells, and I mean, okay, well, so if a guy's got a jacked up knee and he goes to Germany or Panama and goes get stem cell treatments, it's not illegal. It's a PED.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
that crap heals.
For sure.
It turns
For
that
sure.
30-year-old knee into a 20-year-old knee.
Yeah.
Like
For
this.
sure. I mean, I don't know. I guess I guess for now, it's definitely frowned upon.
Yeah.
And maybe until it's refined to a point where it can be taken and it's not dangerous or whatever, and it's not exclusive or something, it'll become more of a norm.
Take MMA, right?
Oh, that's a good example.
DC and Jones. DC has obliterated everyone except one person.
Yeah, the baddest man on the planet.
And I agree with that. I mean,
next to maybe Demetrius Johnson.
Well, yeah.
Next
It's just
maybe him.
weight classes are so different.
Yeah, that makes it completely.
yeah.
They're talking about two opposites, right?
Yeah. So it's Jones on PEDs at any level is beating DC.
Well, they're saying, so the theory now, and I guess you hear on Rogan's podcast, he's always talking about it, is that it was a tainted, I think, creatine from. He said it.
Tainted
something.
Yeah,
right?
it was tainted something. Yeah.
And that they're claiming, or maybe tainted cocaine. I think that might have been another theory, and that maybe that cocaine is cut with a type of creatine that may have had steroid in it, and that may have caused it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the truth. I don't know the man. I wasn't there, but I know he did test positive, and he's had a history of making really bad decisions with his career. So,
he didn't just kind of test. He tested positive.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a range of.
I don't know how. I don't know them.
And it was.
I just know it was enough to.
Yeah. Both samples
and no, this is bad.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good example. I still think John Jones, no PEDs.
I agree.
I think he's just a different animal.
We don't know.
Yeah, if he would just.
It's
so frustrating.
You got to think is that when you're in that, because you do that. I mean, in jiu-jitsu, it's not. I mean, it's not the exact same as being in the octagon, but I mean,
no, I don't think it's anywhere close.
But you think is that if you can increase your reaction time by 1/14 of a second, you're a whole different fighter.
Well, I think, man, when you talk about using PEDs in like UFC or a combat sport or any kind of combat sport, that's bad. That's bad news because you're talking about physical damage you're putting on another person, or the potential to, and if it's just, I think it's just wrong. Like that's definitely, there's a line there that I don't think you can cross.
Yeah,
it's just the people can literally die from something like that, from the wrong hit.
Yeah,
from the wrong, getting dropped on your neck wrong, from that easily happen. And it definitely, of all things, combat sports have to just
gotta
try
be
to prevent
rough.
it.
USADA's doing good with it though, because even their deal out in Vegas, you can voluntarily be a part of. I don't know if you know all this. Their testing program and their monitoring program. And one of the one that's been with them the longest, I think, is Katie Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
If not the longest, one of the longest with them. And so there was one. I think it was last year or something. I don't know. In her prep, in her 10-week prep, she was tested 14 different times, and then it was one of those things like that sucks, but you got 14 clean tests leading into this thing, and when it's clean tests, they just show up. Yeah, and most of those are like 2 a.m, and
that's terrible though. If you're trying to prepare for a fight and you're getting woken up at 2 a.m,
oh, it sucks,
man.
Yeah,
like, I mean, because your sleep is crucial for healing,
massively,
for recovery, for all those things. So, but I mean, compare where they were before, where guys were definitely juicing. There's no question. Like before to now, and you see guys changing weight classes, and you see their physical bodies. I mean, that's the eye test is no lie.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good thing. I don't think the quality of the fights has gone down at all. The skill level is just the same.
I think it's gotten better.
Yeah.
As a whole,
You're seeing incredible performance. I think the athletes are getting better. I think the skill level is getting better.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because MMA's been around, over 20 years now. So you're getting guys who are like black belts and everything.
Yeah.
And been training since they're 5. And it's
so of course the quality is going to go up.
Natural.
Yeah.
It's so natural to them. But so the quality's, I think, just as good. And I think it's healthier for the athletes.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing. I think what USADA, what the UFC did with USADA and the UFC is phenomenal. I think it's a really good thing.
It will be, as long as they don't keep waking people up too fucking.
Well, I don't think that's gonna change.
I'm like, dude, you guys, come on, man.
They're stuck there.
So switching gears a little bit, what do you do to stay level mentally? Because your job is high stress. Teaching,
it's hard.
You can tell me teaching is not high stress. I've been there a long time.
Teaching kids is high stress. I love teaching kids. Don't get me wrong. It's extremely rewarding. But when you got 35 screaming little demons out there, Man, let me tell you, and there's been times, it doesn't have as much now, but there's been times I'm the only instructor out there, and I got 35 of these kids.
Oh,
and
man.
I'm gonna tell you another stress is, and it always gets me, is the parents are watching, and I know some of the parents, train. I train with them.
Yeah.
And but I know they're watching. So it's their kid. I feel the same way about my kid. I want my kid to be safe and be watched and get the proper instruction. And I feel that pressure of them watching me I feel like they're judging me every little thing I do, and so I feel like all this pressure to make sure I show the technique well, and then to make sure that they're learning it and having a good time.
Yeah.
And you got kids crying over here. I got one pooping on the floor over there. I got one throwing up. It happens. And but at the end, it's extremely rewarding when you come into the academy and they know you and they come running up to you and they want to give you hugs and I don't. That's extremely rewarding.
How young do you take them?
3. They start as early as 3, and man, they're awesome. And they look amazing. They're so cute and they're little geese. We got to roll some of them up to get them to
Most
fit.
of them, I'd imagine.
Yeah, when they're like 3, but they get out there and man, kids love it. Kids just love to wrestle. Guess all they're really doing at that point, just kind of flopping around with each other.
Yeah,
and,
but they're learning a lot, man.
Oh yeah, they are, but they have so much fun. Like, they really have. It's real fun to watch them. It's real fun. Well, I did this tournament one time where I was reffing, and it was like a local Gracie Baja tournament, and I remember some of these kids are pretty serious. They're training out of like some of the gyms. They're very serious. They're very competitive. Like when they get 8, 9, 10 years old, you can see some of them are. They're very serious. And I remember I had this one kid, and I could see it in his eyes. He had that fire, and he's like ready to go. He's ready to go. And I see this other kid just kind of like it's training day. He's just on the mat goofing off. And I just looked at him like, hey, man, you ready to go? Hey, man, you ready to go? And he's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm like, oh. So I was like kind of giving him a little space. Like, all right, fight. And, man, I remember this kid just mauled him. Kids crying within 5 seconds, match is over. Because if they start crying, then
it's done.
It's done. But I had another one where similar situation where this kid's on top of this kid, and he's just dominating. He's top. He's putting all this heavy pressure on him. He's trying to get to his position. His kid's underneath, just and you've been there. You're getting smashed, and it's a horrible feeling, and everything sucks. And I see the kid start to cry. I can barely see him, right? Space. So I see the kid start to cry, and I kind of look at him like, hey, are you okay? You want me to stop it? And he was like, no. But he's still crying. I was like, okay. Man, he fought through that whole match. He lost the match, but he fought through the whole way. Even though he was crying, he refused to quit. And I was like super I still never forget that. Like that's a real
awesome.
Inspirational to me. Like this little 6-year-old, 7 or whatever he was, like really inspired me. I was like, man, this kid just
he worked through it.
He's like, I'm hurting, I'm crying, this is horrible, but I'm not going to quit.
Yeah.
And I thought
that's awesome.
So you see things like that, and it makes it incredibly rewarding. Teaching adults is fun. Teaching adults is easy. They want to be there. They're dying to learn.
Yeah.
They're eating it up too. And, you're with an adult, so you're having fun, having conversation. And I don't know how people, jiu-jitsu is very different from traditional martial arts when you're teaching.
Very different.
It's very relaxed environment. Having a good time. We're joking. We're teaching and we're learning, but, it's definitely a much more relaxed environment. So, your relationship with students and, like, my relationship with like Professor Brian, for instance. So it's a personal relationship. It's a friendship.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that you get that in maybe traditional martial arts as much.
Well,
and I have no experience.
I'm going to say this a little bit wrong, but people will get it, is that jiu-jitsu is the void of aggression in relation to other martial arts. That other martial arts require a boiling or a festering or a release, or you're trying to increase your chi, you're trying to focus it, there is an aggressive component to where in jiu-jitsu it doesn't exist. It's almost like you need to be completely void of aggression to be able to stay level, because it is a chess match.
Absolutely.
And and that's it's all about getting the balance, getting the leverage. Being a half inch further out, it's the difference of getting the lock or not, or getting the bar or not, or getting the hold or not. And a lot of people come into jiu-jitsu and don't get that.
Right.
And I think from a physical output, jiu-jitsu is one of the highest as far as what it demands from you physically. That sambo, traditional Greco-Roman, anything wrestling where you're dealing with somebody's body. Mother, it's just crazy. But yeah,
it's a weird thing,
different.
especially when it's hard to explain jiu-jitsu to people. It's very difficult. But it's definitely one thing. So when you're competition level, where you need to go physically hard,
Yeah.
But you're 100% right. It's very rare that anger gets involved. It does happen. There's situations where people let the emotions get over because it can be very intense. But it doesn't serve you well.
No.
It definitely takes away from what you're doing, and it can definitely serve against you and help your opponent if you're going angry. But yeah, there's that finding that line of being physically forceful enough, but not losing your technique.
Yeah.
And it's that weird little balance. And it's hard. I have a hard time competing. I try to find that balance, and I've gone in, I'm going to go super hard. And then I've gone, okay, I got to go super relaxed.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's also the fun part, and it's also the challenge. And
Yeah.
you keep searching for it and trying to find, where you need to be successful. And
it's tough. I know my number one problem with jiu-jitsu from beginning to end is thinking I have something before I head it and going all in on it. So you get overtime. Yeah. Oh shit! If I could go back and fix, so much would be fixed with that. And that's just one of the things for me and myself is constantly telling myself, take what's given.
Yeah.
It's hard to force something to happen unless you've got somebody who's massively inferior to you and do whatever you want with them. But in equal to equal, that's one of just you can't necessarily force it. You have to accept what they give you, and that's what you get.
Yes.
And
I was training earlier today, and I was going against this guy, and it was a fun little match because we were pretty even, skill level wise, training level wise, and we were just kind of he would get into one position, and then there's one thing we had never trained before, by the way. So that's what makes it fun is you don't know each other's games. When you know each other's games, then all of a sudden it's like you kind of they're staying positions.
People have their tendencies.
Yeah, and that can be kind of frustrating in itself. But so I never trained with this guy. I was very excited, and we're rolling, and we're training, and I there was things that I do that I know he didn't know that I'm proficient at, and I would catch him in that and get to a sweep or whatever. But then he had reversals that were pretty good that would get me. Then would relax, and I'd get back to my thing. And so we went like that for about 5 minutes, and at the end we just kind of went back and forth the whole time.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun, and it's hard to even explain to somebody like when you get to experience that. It's just a lot of fun, and I was complimenting him on his game, and afterwards, man, that was really good of you, and it was very enjoyable, and it's fun. It's fun when you get to that where you're level, and now it's about who can apply their technique over the other person.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
So.
And that was one that I'll steal this from Rogan because obviously, right? But his whole thing on his high-level problem solving with dire consequences.
That's a great way to put it. I don't think I've ever heard him say that.
Yeah. So the first time I heard him say it was maybe a year or so ago or whatever, and I was like, ding. Like, I never thought of it that way, but that's perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's his thing or somebody told him. I have no idea. So I just know that's where I heard it first.
That's a really good way of saying it. And because consequences are in a real fight would probably be death if someone wanted to kill you.
Or dismemberment or whatever.
Well,
pick it.
Leading to death. And, the choke. And that's true. I try. I've always told people well, what do you do? They call it pajamas. You do this. I say, well, we practice killing each other over and over again, and they don't get it. I'm like, well, listen, if I put you in a choke, and I decide not to let go, within a certain amount of time, you're dead.
You're done.
You're not coming back.
Yeah.
And I mean that's what we're practicing doing all the time, and to me, I know that sounds. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that we can do that with each other, but not kill each other. Let go.
It takes a lot of trust.
Yeah,
no doubt. And then your team.
I think that's another thing that makes jiu-jitsu so great and makes a tight community is that you put a tremendous amount. Like my job is very much relying on my physical ability to do it.
Yeah.
If I get my arm broke, right, I don't lose my job per se, but I lose my ability to make outside income through that job, which can adversely affect me. So I'm trusting people a lot, or if they decide they're really mad and they want to hold on that choke too long, that could adverse me. I mean, that would never happen, of course, but I think that breeds that trust breeds that kind of how close people become, and how when you meet someone else that does jiu-jitsu, it's like immediately like you can just talk forever about this, that, and other. And you could be two completely different people outside of that, but you got that in common, and it's
and it works, man.
It's a bond.
Yeah.
It creates a bond. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears for a second, and this is obviously, I mean, anybody that's watching, they'll continue this, but this is something I'm going to clip for later. Back to police officers.
Yes.
I've heard it be said by a lot of different people, psychologists to regular people to entertainers to so on and so forth, that they feel like there's, I don't know how to quantify this, so just follow me, a large number of officers that suffer from at least some level of, at least low-level PTSD.
Oh, I 100% agree.
And that they feel that that is the primary driver to an overwhelming majority of mistakes police officers make if they make them day to day. And I don't want to say the extreme and all this kind of stuff, but that was so. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the way you explain it, I think there's probably definitely some legitimacy to that. I tell you, there's a weird stress in law enforcement that we deal with, and I think all people deal with certain stressors through their life, but we deal with a weird one, and so like I say, a patrol officer, we may make 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 traffic stops a day, depending on the day, depending on the call volume, 2 or 3 calls a day, depending on your department. If you work in Chicago, obviously you're basically in a war zone, but that's a whole nother level. But I mean, and so here, an average day would be 2 or 3 calls, maybe 4, and 3 or 4 traffic stops. Okay, doesn't sound like a whole lot in an 8-hour shift. And then you can develop some paperwork and maybe arrests off of it or whatever.
Yeah.
But each time you do a traffic stop, and I've been doing them so long, it doesn't really feel like it, but I know it's there. You're pulling them over, right? And so now you're immediately evaluating everything about that vehicle.
Yep.
Probably before the traffic stop. We'll start with the point you decide to light them up. They've committed a traffic violation, infraction, whatever. So now I'm looking in the car. How many people in the car?
Yeah.
What are they doing in the car? Is it a male? Is it a female? Are they moving around? What's happening at this point? Where are we going to stop at? Are they going to stop? All these things are happening like really within seconds.
Yeah.
So then they find are they going to stop in a safe place? Because I don't want to be stopped on this road where I got cars zooming by me and I got to worry about getting hit. Okay, now I got to get them over here. So you finally get them to a place where you feel comfortable getting out of your vehicle. Now I've got to, say at night, I've got to make sure I've got lights on that car so I can see everything that's happening. I've got to make sure my dispatcher knows where I'm at so other officers know where I'm at. So if something happens, they know how to get to me. And now I'm going to get out of my car. Now I'm getting out of my car and I'm walking up and I'm evaluating every step of what's happening.
And let's be clear, the second you're past your door, you're in the most vulnerable position you could possibly be in.
I would disagree with you. I would say that I'm in the most vulnerable position when I'm sitting behind my steering wheel because I'm locked into a seat.
Yeah, true. Okay,
if
yeah, true.
Start blasting me from there, where am I going to go? I got to hopefully duck down and maybe get away. Yeah. If I'm outside my vehicle, I can run to cover. I can zigzag. I can make myself a very true. Target, right?
True.
So as I'm walking up, but I'm still in a very vulnerable spot because I can't see what they're doing.
Right.
They can maybe see what I'm doing depending on how well I set up my lights. So as I get up there, I'm still evaluating. Now, let's say it's dark tent. I can't see in the car.
Yeah.
I don't know who's in the back seat. I'm not going to walk past that front back seat because I don't want to get blasted by some guy sitting right there. So I bang on the window. I say, hey, I need you to roll down your back window. Well, now they're mad because they don't understand why. Why do you need me to roll down my back window? I'm not doing anything. Just why are you hassling me?
Right.
And the only thing I'm concerned about, I just want to make sure someone in the back seat is going to blast me. So you go through all this stuff. I think you get my drift. So there's 100 things going on, and now if the person's hostile, I got to deal with trying to keep them from being more hostile, trying to keep them calm, so we can get through the traffic stop, so I can release them, so I can go about my day, they can go about their day.
Yeah.
And I did my job. I've moved them on, and you're doing all those things. So you do that repeatedly over and over again. And what I think happens is these little, and I hate using this theory because this example because it's always used, but the glass when you feel water in it, and you've probably heard it before, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you feel a little water in it, and that's your stress, right? You stress. Eventually, if you're not dissipating that stress, it just builds up and it's going to overflow.
Yeah.
Now, where is it going to overflow? Is it going to overflow at home? Is it going to overflow at work? You really don't know. But I think what you're talking about, I'd love to read it.
Well, that's one. And so, do you think the various stations and such should implement forced stress managers? I don't know the right way to say that because it didn't exist. I'm making something up here.
Yeah, but I think the theory behind what you're saying, there probably should be some type of process that departments provide, but we're now talking about resources.
Yeah.
And we're talking about money.
Yeah.
And budgets and money and where money goes in a police department It's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's limited, and so it has to be split up between training budgets, equipment budgets, anticipated overtime.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors in these budgets, and so now you want to throw in a professional.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
assuming
man.
you would have to use a professional shrink. Someone who's going to cost money.
Yeah, somebody that's going to be some level of cost.
And,
yeah.
And are the officers even going to use it? Is it going to be effective? Is it effective use of money? I don't know. I tell you what I do, and I go to the gym and I lift.
Yeah.
Burn out as many calories as I can there, burn out as much stress as I can there, and then I turn around right after that because I have limited time, go to the academy and practice strangling people and let them practice strangling me. And then I feel pretty good at the end of that. I feel pretty drained. It's not perfect.
Do you do any kind of meditation, any kind of?
No, I it's one of those things where I'm like, man, I should do that.
Yeah.
And then I'll read a little book on it and look into it a little bit, but then I never actually do it.
Yeah.
It's something I think I would like to try. I've never done it.
Consider
really
it.
Focused on it.
'Cause, I mean, you can download an app for guided meditation. It's all free,
Right.
and people. The science behind it is that they're pretty confident as little as 5 minutes has a lot of benefit.
Right.
And then there's stuff that, like, a few days ago I went and I did the float tank.
I was just thinking about that. Now that when you said
Awesome.
that.
Now there's different kinds. Okay, so there's it's for desensitization and things of that nature. But isolation tanks. So they have some that have lights. They have some that are kind of big boxes that are like half the size of this room, and you float on the bottom of it, so you could always stand up and things. They have some that are completely blacked out. It just depends on what your comfort level is. For me, the darker and more quiet it is, the better.
What would be like? How much do you feel like it helped you?
On the good side, almost immeasurably. It is insane, and that part of that, the good side of it is because of what I deal with. I have to trust where I am.
Right.
That it's cool, that it's safe, that I can let myself go, so to speak, in that tank and feel safe. In the tank, I'm safe. I don't have any issues there, but it's more about the surroundings and things of that nature. I have to be able to feel like I'm secure and I'm safe to be able to let myself get into that position to be okay. But man, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's the closest thing you can get to being weightless, like in space, weightless. And if it's sealed right and quiet enough and it's dark enough, what you hear, see, feel is insane. And it takes usually, I mean, like the last one, it was an hour. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes to truly relax in that water because you're floating. And to truly trust that you won't go down and all that kind of stuff. Because I don't know if you know, it's all a lot of minerals and heavy salts and things like that. I mean, you're floating.
Right.
Just like on the Dead Sea and all that. Right. I mean, you have to work to get down. Like if you want to go underwater, you've got to find something to grab and pull you. I mean, you can't. You're not going to drown, obviously, but massively cool.
It's definitely something I've the isolation tanks, float tanks. Obviously, I've heard about it. Jiu-jitsu community, obviously everybody's talked about that, and it's something I think it's growing. It's one of those things where I'm like, man, I should try that. I think I could definitely benefit from it. I just haven't done it. It's one of those things where I haven't fit that into my schedule.
And some of it's time. Some people are like, oh, well, there's 15 things I need to do to be at peak for me, and I got time to do 10 of them.
Yeah.
And that's my deal.
It's just about making priorities.
Yeah.
It's something I definitely want to give it a shot. I think it would definitely be beneficial.
Yeah, do it. We can definitely get you pointed the right way.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. I'm definitely going to try it for sure.
Get the force to buy one. Nope.
No, that's not going to happen.
Okay, so we've been like hour 15, so we probably should chill it.
That went by quick.
Yeah, and I mean it goes fast.
Yeah.
But it was good. I appreciate it, man.
It was awesome. Thanks for
thank you.
me. I had a good time talking about stuff.
Yeah.
And,
is there and this is one thing kind of we'll close with this. Is there anything people should know that makes life easier for you and them when they get pulled over?
Oh, that's a good question. So I would just simply, first of all, relax.
Yeah.
It's only a traffic stop. We want to go home just as much as you want to go home.
Yeah.
So, all we're going to do, all I can say is you don't have to go overboard with putting your hands out the window. I get that sometimes. People put their hands out the window, which freaks me out more because I'm like, well, what do you got in the car that you're doing that? But just relax. Good general rules. Put your hands on the steering wheel. Don't be nervous. Don't be tense. We're going to come up. We're going to ask you for your driver's license and your insurance. Be ready to provide that to us.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you a couple questions maybe. We're going to explain why we stopped you. We're going to go back to our car, and we're going to issue either warning or citation, and then we're going to cut you loose as long as that's the only problem that we're dealing with is that traffic violation.
So, and then the obvious follow-up to that, so people who carry, how do you, what's the best way for them to do that with you?
Number one, if you're, the law is this. Anybody can carry in their vehicle.
Yeah.
Right? If you are a CHL carrier and you're carrying it on a person, you're required to show me that you're a CHL holder. But, just relax. Let me know that you got a gun in the car. Say, hey, and a lot of people will keep it in their glove compartment or whatever. Just say, hey, I just want you to know I do have a gun in the car.
Yeah.
And it's right here. And that's not a problem. You're obeying the law. As long as you're obeying the law, you're fine. I don't have an issue with it. You just main thing is relax.
Yeah.
I see people get very tense. I've had people break down crying. I've had all kinds of weird things happen over a traffic stop, and I'm like, look, man, relax.
It's cool.
You're going to go home here in a second. I just got to do my job, and then we're done. Main thing is just relax and just do what the officer says. Don't make his life too hard.
Okay, so here's a carry-in car question.
Okay.
And this is from I was on a channel. I like reading threads and watch people go at each other. I need to stop that because it's really entertaining to me because I don't really get involved. I just watch it.
Right.
So they're going back and forth, and a lot of the same questions. So I figured I'd ask it, and they're all state of Texas.
Okay.
So that
I'll
helps.
do my best to answer.
When you're carrying in your car with your CHL or no, it's LTC now, right?
Oh, okay.
I think they changed the term. Whatever, CHL.
If you shows how much I'm keeping
CHL or not, you're carrying in your car.
Okay.
Can the firearm be visible while it's in your car?
No, it's a concealed. So with the opening up to the law where people can keep it open carry, I want to be honest with you. I'm not 100% sure on that particular part where inside your vehicle, if you have a license to carry, if you can keep it open. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to have to look it up, to be honest with you. My suggestion would be not to do that.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of people are saying, well, they want to attach a holster to their console,
right,
or they want to do some things of that nature.
To do that. And I think that's probably okay. I don't know the answer to that question because this law with the open carry is new to us too.
Yeah.
And so we're still trying to figure it out as well.
And I'll tell you, I don't want you to feel bad on it. There were multiple attorneys on there. There were other officers. Nobody knew. Nobody could definitively say.
I can tell you,
this.
my response would be probably as long as you're law abiding and not trying to do anything wrong. I would just simply say probably want to conceal it for everybody's safety. Just to be concerned. If you're carrying a concealed weapon, you probably want it on you anyway. It's more effective. You should be
accessible.
Drawing it from your weapon, from seated position. You should be effective at that if you're carrying anyway.
I mean, I didn't input. That would be my input. It's just you want it in the most accessible location.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily get out of your car quickly, and if you're leaving it in your front seat, well, it's still there.
You got to jump out, and
it's not helping you much in the front seat.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So. No, yeah. I figured I'd ask those because those were just
I'm glad you asked me because I'm gonna look that up when I get to work and try to see.
I've read it. I've read the statute a million times, and it's really not.
It's kind of vague.
Yeah, it's not super clear.
Well, it didn't. I don't think it addresses if it can be open in your car. I'm not sure.
Well, you can open carry in your car, but the way it reads, it's almost still got to be in the same locations. Holstered chest,
let me
holstered
rephrase
hip.
that. I mean, like laying out open in your car versus on your.
But it doesn't really say, because it's like some law says your person is your car.
Yeah,
and some law says your person is.
I would err on the side of it's not against the law at this point.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure because there's a process for arresting people. By the way, you don't just get to you're going to jail. I'm pretty sure an ADA would be like negative. We're not taking someone to jail for that. So the purpose of the law is not to try to put people in jail. The purpose of the law is to do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Be approached.
Okay, that was just figured you got reading material later.
I'm glad. I got to look into that. That's a good question.
Yeah. So awesome. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, man. That was cool.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, and it'll be up, and the audio will be up, and I'll send you all the links, and we'll start cutting it up, and you can do stuff with it if you want to.
I appreciate it. This. Really cool. This was a lot
awesome. Cool. Yeah. Thank you, man.
All right, man.
All right. So peace, everybody. Thank you. We're gonna stop this and then.